Hey guys, today we're joining Bob Holmes and Andrea Johnson again. Today we're going to talk about weather, how to dodge the bullets with bad weather, but how to use it to really make your photos pop.
So this was at a vineyard out in Walla Walla, Washington. And in the spring, they have really rapid transitions of weather. And we were actually both working on video and photography, and this happened so quickly. I was only able to get a few still frames off in time. But what was magical is just how the wind and the dust and the clouds and everything was mirroring the energy that was happening in the night. And I think it's important to, as much as I hate waking up at 4 a.m., and actually it's 3:30 a.m. out in Walla Walla those times of year, there's almost always something that happens during very early pre-dawn hours. Yeah. And you want to have a plan, but then be ready to be able to transition quickly and work with whatever's happening out there. So I liked that natural movement. The horse was plowing the vineyards, and it was getting ready before that happened, and in position that it all just lined up. So just knowing a place and where there's potential is really important. And then you have to hope that you're ready for that magic.
Andrea, I love the way you've got the light on the vineyards and the dark in the sky. You've got this massive contrast going on. Where was this again?
This is at Cayuse, their vineyard out in Walla Walla, Washington. That area, dawn happens quite early at that time of year. And in the summer, it can just be more desert-like, very bright, hot, sunny days. So you have a really small window of time at the early morning and late afternoon where you've got some of that magic happening.
Yeah. Now, do you use weather apps to see what's going on? How do you know what's going to happen?
Yeah, like I said, it's probably more consistency of being able to be on the same locations. Yeah. We try to plan more there for the springtime because it's really fresher, more dramatic storms that come through. But once you've traveled to a location, and most of our travels as well, you have to just be ready to move with it. So although we use the weather apps, more often I'll use that Sun Seeker app where I'll know exactly where the sun rises on certain days. And I can plug it out all 365 days of the year. So certain times the sun might not hit that vineyard, in that location, trees might be blocking it or part of the mountain. So you time that out with the conditions and then just hope that you've picked the right season and continue to go back and capture different variations.
Yep. The sheep in the rain. And I love the way you actually have the raindrops streaking through this.
Yeah, so we can almost I'll talk briefly about this one and then move on to the other. It was a very sudden downpour. Actually, Bob's video gear got pretty drenched, so he had to go in and switch out. And the backlighting before the rain started was fairly dramatic. And when the sun's that low in the sky that you want to stay through the scene, that you may get lucky and have a rainbow. So this is another vineyard for Cayuse that I've been working with for years and hoping for some type of drama that's going to happen. And I actually was caught myself without any rain gear out there for the shoot and was able to shelter the cameras well enough with some of the gear. And then the next one was just maybe 20 minutes afterwards, if you can switch to the rainbow shot.
Yeah. There it is. Same spot.
Yeah, one thing that I think it's important to add, I'm not a gearhead, as you know, Marc.
I do know that.
Equipment doesn't really interest me. But the big advantage of professional cameras is very often they're weather sealed. You won't see any difference in the results. The final photographs will look the same. But if you're caught in a downpour with a pro level camera, the chances are it will survive because they have good weather sealing. And that's something you should always look at when you're buying your equipment.
That's a good point.
Otherwise, you can miss great shots.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is a fantastic. So, Andrea, that's in the exact same spot? Same.
I just turned around 180, and actually I did have to run a bit. I wanted to get the animals in between the rainbow. So I've been using a lot of the Nikon mirrorless gear. I think I had a Nikon D850 over one shoulder, and I didn't even have my wide-angled lens, which was terrible. I had a 24-70 on a Nikon Z7.
Oh, wow.
And obviously I couldn't fit the rainbow in it, and I didn't have enough time to sprint back to where the rest of my gear was. So I think I stitched 5 different photos together vertically for that rainbow shot to make it work. And I only got one chance at that before the intensity. There's actually a slight double rainbow on top of it.
Yeah, I see that.
But animals were moving quickly. The light was moving super quickly. I was running through the field to get in the right position really quickly. So by having lightweight gear and being able to respond really fast, I think it's important to be able to be mobile as well. And if you have too much slogging you down, I wish that I'd had the wide angle lens, but then also knowing that if you overlap each photo at least a third of the way and you shoot quickly, you're probably going to get it to line up with either Lightroom or Photoshop's some good algorithms for panoramics.
Yes.
So,
Sandy in India has a good question at this point on global assignments, how a photographer copes with ever-changing weather and color of light.
I'll switch back and forth.
More India experience. Hi, Sandy. I recognize your name. I guess color of light is something that you just accept. I don't worry about it. If you're shooting advertising photography and have to match a product, it's very different. But as documentary editorial photographers, it's not something that's of any great concern. You want and particularly shooting RAW. If you shoot RAW on digital camera, you can always adjust it in Photoshop or Lightroom. So you have that ability to tweak light, tweak temperature to any way you want it afterwards. Yeah. So I don't worry too much about light generally. As far as weather's concerned, again, you don't have any choice. You have to be prepared for any kind of weather, and don't not go out just because the weather's bad. Bad weather, I think, is far more interesting than good weather.
So true.
We probably end up going out more in bad weather when we travel than when we do at home, where you have a tendency, if you're not on assignment, to get lazy. And when you're traveling, you only have X amount of time at a place, and you'll be at that scene no matter what. Remember in Czech Republic at the journalism conference, the torrential rain that hit us in the square. And one of the shots that I'll show in Vietnam coming up, I don't know if we would have been out in those floods had it been at home necessarily. So it forces you to change. I think clothing is important too, that you're able to be comfortable enough and move around enough in extreme temperatures. Lots of layers, and then bags that you can carry it in quickly and move in quickly and just be able to be on your feet for long periods of time if that's what it necessitates.
Yeah, actually, clothing is very important because you tend not to think about it as a photographer necessarily, but you need to dress appropriately. If you're wearing clothes that you don't care about, you feel much less inhibited about lying down on the floor or kneeling down or tearing your clothing to get the shot than if you're wearing decent clothes. So I always wear clothing that is disposable to some extent, and also weather appropriate clothing. If it's hot, wear something that's cool. If it's cold, make sure you're wrapped up well. You don't want to stand there shivering. You'll get camera shake apart from anything else, but you want to be appropriately dressed so that nothing gets in the way of your concentration on the image that you're trying to capture. Anything that detracts from that is going to get in the way of the photograph.
And I think that's so important because if you are limiting yourself in any way, you're going to miss photos. If you can't lie down on the ground, you were talking about this once, Bob. If you can't lie down, or your shoes are really uncomfortable, or you're overly hot or too cold or whatever, it just gets in the way.
Yeah, it's one of the basic fundamentals of photography. You have to strip everything away that could get in the way of seeing that final image. It's like learning your equipment knowing how your equipment works, being totally familiar with it. If you're not, then as soon as you have to start thinking about things, it's taking away some of that vision from the actual subject. Clothing's an integral part of that.
Adding on to that, one thing I was thinking about too is it's not just always about your clothing, because you were talking about you got to have the clothing willing to get, dirty and everything, but also with your equipment. If you're loaded down with a ton of equipment, there's no way that you're going to be able to, get down on the ground if you've got 3 cameras, around your neck.
That's really true, Jared. In fact, I remember one assignment I did. I'd just switched systems. I'd forgotten the exact circumstances, but basically I had a very simple outfit, a couple of bodies and a couple of lenses. And it was one of the best shoots I've ever done, because I didn't have to continually be thinking, should I change this lens? Should I use some other equipment to get the shot? I had what I had, and that was all I could use, and it freed me up tremendously.
I'm really glad you joined us today. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and enable the bell so you can get all our new videos. Make sure you leave your comments. I read every one of them and try to respond to all of them. Like, share, and remember to get out and capture your own images of life.